The microphone slipped from Hyunjin's trembling hand the exact second Felix screamed his name in front of 20,000 fans. For one terrifying heartbeat, the entire arena fell silent. The stage lights burned white against the smoke-filled air, while music continued blasting through the speakers, distorted and violent, as if the concert itself didn't realize something had gone horribly wrong. Fans near the barricade froze with phones raised mid-recording. Some laughed nervously, believing it was part of the performance. Others stared at the giant LED screens where Felix's face appeared pale, far too pale to be acting. Hyunjin collapsed to one knee, and Felix ran toward him, not in the dramatic, choreographed way idols usually moved during fanservice moments. No playful smile, no teasing expression for the cameras. He shoved past the backup dancers hard enough to nearly lose balance, breathing unevenly as panic cracked across his face. Hyunjin, the scream echoed through the stadium louder than the music itself. For months, fans had joked that Felix and Hyunjin acted too real on stage, their lingering stares, the quiet hand touches when cameras zoomed away, the strange tension whenever one of them looked exhausted. Clips of them had spread across the internet, with millions of views under titles claiming they were the greatest actors in K-pop, but no one could fake the fear in Felix's eyes now, not even Hyunjin. The massive screens above the stage showed Hyunjin gripping his chest while trying to breathe. Sweat dripped down his neck, despite the freezing air cannons surrounding the stage. His blonde hair clung messily against his forehead as the crowd's screams slowly transformed from excitement into confusion, then terror. Felix dropped beside him instantly. "What happened?" Felix whispered, voice shaking violently. Hyunjin didn't answer, he couldn't. His fingers were trembling too hard. The camera director quickly cut away from the close-up, replacing the screen with flashing concert graphics, but it was too late. Thousands of fans had already seen everything. And somewhere deep backstage, their manager cursed under his breath, because the secret they had spent almost a year hiding was beginning to fall apart live in front of the entire world. Felix grabbed Hyunjin's wrist carefully, cold, too cold. His stomach twisted, not again. The memory hit him instantly. Hyunjin collapsing in the practice room 3 months earlier, blood staining the sleeve of his hoodie. The sound of Hyunjin begging him not to tell anyone Felix had promised. And now that promise was destroying him. "I'm okay," Hyunjin finally forced out between uneven breaths. He wasn't. Felix knew every version of Hyunjin's voice. The teasing one he used during interviews, the soft, sleepy tone at 3 a.m. after schedules, the fake, confident laugh he used when hiding anxiety from the members. This voice was different. This was fear, real fear. The music finally stopped completely. An unnatural silence spread through the arena while staff members rushed toward the stage wearing black headsets and strained expressions. One security guard tried approaching Hyunjin, but Felix immediately blocked him. "Back off." Sharpness in Felix's tone shocked everyone nearby. Even Hyunjin looked up. Felix rarely sounded angry. Fans knew him as sunshine, gentle smiles, soft freckles, warm laughter, but the boy kneeling on stage now looked absolutely terrified, and terrifying. "It's just dizziness," Hyunjin whispered quickly, trying to stand. His knees buckled immediately. Felix caught him before he hit the floor. The crowd gasped so loudly it sounded like thunder. Some fans began crying. Others kept recording because they still believed this was scripted drama for the concert. Social media comments exploded within seconds. "This has to be acting. No way this is real. Why does Felix look like he's about to cry?" Meanwhile, Felix's hands were shaking uncontrollably around Hyunjin's shoulders because he remembered exactly what the doctor had said. If Hyunjin collapsed again under stress, things could become dangerous very quickly. But Hyunjin refused to stop performing, always smiling, always pretending, because Hyunjin was terrified of disappointing everyone, especially Felix. The stage lights dimmed slightly as staff whispered frantically into microphones. The leader attempted to calm the audience while medics waited near the stairs, uncertain whether approaching would make the situation worse. Hyunjin hated appearing weak in public, hated it more than pain itself. Felix leaned closer, lowering his voice enough that only Hyunjin could hear. "You promised me you, tell me if it got worse." Hyunjin looked away immediately. That answer alone was enough. Felix felt anger and heartbreak collide violently inside his chest. "You lied to me." "No," Hyunjin whispered. "I just thought I could finish tonight first." The words shattered something inside Felix, because that was exactly who Hyunjin was, someone who would destroy himself quietly if it meant protecting others. Felix remembered the countless nights Hyunjin stayed awake practicing alone until sunrise because he thought he wasn't good enough. Way he secretly read hateful comments online and pretended they didn't hurt him. The way his hands sometimes trembled before performances even when he smiled confidently backstage. Nobody noticed those things except Felix. And maybe that was the real problem. Felix noticed everything. The giant LED screens flickered again accidentally, revealing a close-up of Felix gripping Hyunjin's face gently while whispering something desperate. Fans erupted into emotional screams across the arena. It looked cinematic, beautiful, almost romantic, but Felix's chest felt like it was collapsing. "Look at me," Felix said softly. Hyunjin finally met his eyes, and Felix immediately saw it: exhaustion, not ordinary tiredness, the kind buried deep inside someone who had been fighting silently for far too long. "You need to leave the stage." "No, Hyunjin," I said. "No." The stubbornness in his voice almost sounded angry now, but Felix could hear the fear underneath it. Hyunjin wasn't scared of pain. He was scared of headlines, rumors, fans worrying, becoming a burden to the group. Felix suddenly stood up and pulled Hyunjin with him carefully. The audience screamed louder. Their faces were inches apart now under the burning stage lights, and every camera in the arena focused directly on them. Hyunjin grabbed Felix's sleeve weakly. "Make this bigger than it already is." Stared at him in disbelief. Bigger. Hyunjin could barely stand. Felix's throat tightened painfully. "You think I care about the show right now?" For the first time all night, Hyunjin looked speechless. The members nearby exchanged nervous glances. Staff looked frozen. Even the crowd seemed quieter somehow, sensing the rawness in Felix's voice. Fans had seen them joke together thousands of times. They had never seen Felix look at Hyunjin like this, like losing him was his greatest fear. A sudden ringing noise echoed backstage. One manager cursed. Another staff member rushed toward them holding a phone with a horrified expression. Someone had leaked Hyunjin's hospital photos online. Felix saw the panic on the staff member's face immediately, so did Hyunjin. And in that exact moment, Hyunjin understood everything was about to collapse. The secret, the lies, the fake smiles, all of it. The arena lights suddenly darkened completely, except for a single spotlight above them. Thousands of fans screamed in confusion, while security guards moved quickly near the stage entrance. Felix turned toward the backstage area instinctively. Bad. Something was very, very bad. Then Hyunjin whispered something so quietly Felix almost didn't hear it. They found out. Heartbeat stopped. Because Hyunjin wasn't talking about the hospital photos. He was talking about the reason those hospital visits existed in the first place. Felix's fingers tightened instinctively around Hyunjin's arm. The spotlight above them flickered once, throwing sharp shadows across Hyunjin's exhausted face, while thousands of voices crashed together inside the darkened arena like a violent storm. Fans were chanting their names now, confused and emotional, unaware that something far more dangerous than a simple collapse was unfolding behind the curtains. "They know," Felix whispered. Hyunjin didn't answer immediately. That silence terrified him more than anything else. Backstage staff were moving faster now, too fast. Security guards appeared near the side entrances, while managers argued in hushed but frantic voices over their headsets. One of the dancers looked close to tears. Something had changed. Felix could feel it. Hyunjin suddenly swayed again. Felix caught him instantly, wrapping an arm around his waist before he could fall. The contact was automatic, natural in a way that cameras usually loved capturing, but tonight there was nothing performative about it. Hyunjin was trembling, not from fear of the audience, from fear of what came next. "We have to go backstage," Felix said quietly. "No," Hyunjin's voice cracked this time. "If we disappear now, they'll panic. They're already panicking." The LED screens accidentally flashed another close-up before cutting away again, and the entire stadium erupted. Online live-stream chats exploded faster than moderators could delete comments. "Why is Felix holding him like that? This looks scripted. Hyunjin is crying." And he was barely. A thin shine gathered in Hyunjin's eyes beneath the harsh lights, though he kept trying to blink it away before anyone noticed. Felix noticed. Of course he did. He always did. That was the problem. Months ago, when Hyunjin first received the diagnosis, he had laughed after leaving the hospital. Not because it was funny, but because the alternative was breaking apart completely. Felix still remembered that night perfectly. Rain hitting the taxi windows, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to Hyunjin's hoodie, the doctor's careful voice repeating the words stress-induced cardiac complications, temporary if treated properly, dangerous if ignored. Hyunjin ignored it immediately. Tell the others, he had whispered back then, staring out the car window. Felix had stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You collapsed, still alive? That's not funny. Hyunjin smiled anyway, that broken, tired smile Felix hated more than tears. People find out, everything changes. Wanted to argue, wanted to scream. But when Hyunjin finally looked at him that night, his eyes carried something deeper than fear, shame. As if being sick somehow made him less valuable. Felix had never forgiven himself for staying quiet after that. Now standing beneath blinding stage lights while thousands watched, regret burned through his chest so violently it made breathing difficult. A loud static noise suddenly blasted through the speakers. The crowd screamed. One of the giant screens glitched violently, and for half a second a private photograph appeared. Hyunjin sitting in a hospital bed, Felix asleep beside him, their hands intertwined tightly between white blankets. Then the screen went black. The arena exploded into chaos. Fans screamed so loudly the sound physically vibrated through the floor. Staff members shouted backstage, while technicians desperately tried regaining control of the system. Felix felt Hyunjin freeze beside him. No, not that photo, anything except that one, because that picture had never been meant for the public. It was taken during the worst night of Felix's life. The night doctors warned them Hyunjin's condition had nearly become critical after pushing himself through rehearsals despite severe chest pain. Felix remembered sitting beside that hospital bed until sunrise, refusing to sleep because every time Hyunjin's heartbeat monitor changed rhythm, terror crushed the air from his lungs. At some point, exhaustion finally won. Apparently someone had taken a picture before dawn, and now the entire world had seen it. Hyunjin looked like he'd stopped breathing. Felix turned toward him instantly. Hey! Hyunjin's eyes remained fixed on the dark screen above them. The crowd noise felt distant now, muffled, unreal. Felix knew that expression. Hyunjin only looked like that when panic became too overwhelming to hide anymore. Hyunjin, I told you this would happen, he whispered hollowly. Felix's chest tightened painfully. You did nothing wrong. That's not how they'll see it. The words sliced deeper than Felix expected because Hyunjin sounded completely certain, not dramatic, not emotional, just tired in the way people become after carrying fear alone for too long. Another loud crash echoed backstage. Someone shouted that reporters were already publishing articles online. Managers looked seconds away from complete breakdowns. But Felix couldn't focus on any of it because Hyunjin suddenly stepped backward out of his grasp and smiled. It wasn't real. Felix knew instantly. Hyunjin's fake smiles had tiny differences most people never noticed. The tension near his eyes, the stiffness around his mouth, the way his shoulders locked painfully straight. He was putting the idol mask back on right now, in the middle of falling apart. Hyunjin grabbed a microphone with visibly shaking hands and faced the audience. The cheers became deafening immediately. Everyone, he said softly, voice echoing through the arena, I'm sorry for worrying you. Stared at him in disbelief. Hyunjin continued smiling despite looking moments away from collapsing again. It's nothing serious. His voice cut off sharply, one hand flew to his chest, the microphone slipped again, and this time Felix saw genuine fear flash across Hyunjin's face. Everything happened too fast afterward. The crowd screamed. The members rushed forward. Staff ran onto the stage. Hyunjin lost balance completely, and Felix caught him before he hit the ground. But unlike before, Hyunjin didn't respond immediately. His eyes were closed. Hyunjin. Felix's voice cracked violently across the silent arena. For one horrifying second, Hyunjin didn't move at all. Then the arena lights abruptly shut off. Complete darkness swallowed the stadium, while terrified screams echoed everywhere. And somewhere backstage, hidden beneath the chaos, a single camera continued recording everything live.
Darkness swallowed the arena so completely that even the screaming sounded distant. Felix could barely see Hyunjin in his arms. All he could feel was the terrifying weight of him. Too still, too weak. Move, someone shouted backstage. Flashlights cut through the blackness in frantic streaks while security guards pushed through confused dancers and staff members. Fans screamed louder each second, thousands of glowing light sticks shaking violently across the darkness like scattered stars caught inside a storm. But Felix heard none of it clearly. His entire world had narrowed to one thing only, Hyunjin's breathing or the lack of it. Hyunjin, Felix whispered desperately, gripping the back of his neck. Hey, stay with me. The silence nearly destroyed him. A medic finally dropped beside them with emergency equipment, but Felix refused to let go. His hands were shaking too badly now to hide it. Sir, we need space. No, The word came out harsher than intended. The medic hesitated. Felix rarely raised his voice, but the expression on his face now was enough to stop everyone nearby cold. His eyes looked terrifying under the flickering emergency lights. Red, panicked, completely shattered. Another flashlight beam swept across Hyunjin's face. Pale, far too pale. Felix suddenly remembered a sentence the doctor once said quietly outside Hyunjin's hospital room. Stress doesn't only hurt physically. Sometimes people get so used to surviving that they stop realizing how close they are to breaking. Back then, Felix didn't fully understand it. Now he did, because Hyunjin had been breaking for months, and everyone had applauded him while he did it. The emergency generators kicked in suddenly. Dim red lights flooded the arena. Gasps rippled through the crowd as fans finally saw the scene clearly again on the giant screens that technicians had failed to shut down completely. Felix kneeling on the stage floor, Hyunjin unconscious against his chest, one trembling hand desperately gripping Felix's jacket. The entire stadium fell silent, not performance silence, not anticipation, the kind of silence born from fear. Some fans near the front barricade were crying openly now. Phones still recorded but shakily, uncertainly, as reality began crushing through the illusion people once believed was fanservice. This wasn't acting, not even close. Felix leaned closer to Hyunjin again, voice breaking apart completely. "You promised me." The words slipped out before he could stop them. A dangerous sentence, too personal, too revealing. Managers backstage looked horrified instantly. But Felix didn't care anymore. He couldn't. Not when Hyunjin's fingers were slowly loosening against his sleeve. The medic finally managed to check Hyunjin's pulse, expression tightening almost immediately. "We need to move him now." Looked up sharply. "What's wrong?" The medic hesitated for half a second too long, and Felix understood. Pure terror flooded through him. "No, Felix, no!" The scream echoed through the entire arena. Fans gasped, even the members froze. Felix never screamed, not like this, not with raw panic tearing through every word. Then suddenly a weak cough. Hyunjin's body jerked slightly. Felix snapped back toward him instantly. "Hyunjin," slowly, painfully. Hyunjin's eyes opened halfway. The relief that hit Felix nearly made him collapse himself. "There you are," he whispered shakily. Hyunjin looked disoriented beneath the flashing red lights. His breathing sounded uneven, fragile, but alive. Felix almost laughed from relief. Instead, his eyes burned painfully. Hyunjin stared at him for several long seconds before whispering something so soft Felix barely heard it. "You're crying." Touched his own face instinctively. His fingers came away wet. He hadn't even realized. The sight of that seemed to hurt Hyunjin more than his own condition. His expression twisted faintly with guilt as he tried weakly lifting a hand toward Felix's face. "I'm sorry." That apology shattered something inside Felix completely, because even now, even barely conscious, Hyunjin's first instinct was apologizing for becoming a problem. Felix grabbed his hand immediately before it fell. "Stop saying sorry." Hyunjin gave a faint, exhausted smile. "You're angry." Terrified. Honesty of it hung between them, raw, unfiltered, and devastatingly real. The members nearby looked away quietly as if suddenly witnessing something too intimate for cameras and crowds. Even the staff had gone silent now, because nobody had ever seen Felix like this before, not the cheerful idol, not the playful performer, just a frightened person desperately trying not to lose someone important. A loud notification sound suddenly echoed backstage, then another, and another. Phones everywhere were exploding with alerts. The leaked hospital photo had spread globally within minutes, news articles, videos, threads dissecting every interaction Felix and Hyunjin had shared over the past year. Fans online were already dividing into chaos. Some worried desperately for Hyunjin, others accused them of hiding things. And some people were being cruel. Felix accidentally caught sight of a staff member's phone screen nearby, attention-seeking behavior, probably fake. Using illness for publicity, his stomach turned violently. Hyunjin saw it too. Felix knew because the tiny remaining color drained from his face. Felix said immediately, blocking his view, "Don't look at that." But it was too late. That familiar emptiness appeared in Hyunjin's eyes again, the dangerous kind, the kind Felix had seen during sleepless nights when Hyunjin silently scrolled hateful comments alone, believing nobody noticed. Hyunjin pulled his hand away gently. "I ruined everything." "You didn't ruin anything." "Concert over." "I don't care about the concert." Felix's voice cracked loudly enough to echo. Several fans in the audience began sobbing harder after hearing it. Hyunjin stared at him quietly, then finally whispered the truth Felix had feared hearing for months. "I think I'm tired." Physically, Felix knew immediately this was deeper. the exhaustion hidden beneath endless schedules, fake smiles, pressure, fear, expectations, and loneliness. The exhaustion of someone who spent too long pretending to be okay. Felix felt his chest ache so sharply it almost became anger, not at Hyunjin, at everyone, at the industry, at the cameras still recording, at himself for not protecting him better. Without thinking, Felix reached forward and pulled Hyunjin against him carefully despite the chaos surrounding them. The crowd gasped collectively. Hyunjin froze in surprise. Felix didn't care. He lowered his voice until it became almost invisible beneath the distant arena noise. "You don't have to survive this alone anymore." For a moment, Hyunjin said nothing, then Felix felt it, a tiny tremor against his shoulder. Hyunjin was crying silently, no dramatic sobbing, no sound, just quiet tears soaking into Felix's jacket while thousands of people watched in complete silence. And somewhere high above the stage, hidden inside the darkness near the lighting rigs, someone continued filming them long after the official cameras finally shut off. The red emergency lights painted the stage like a scene from a disaster film. Smoke from the concert effects still drifted through the air, mixing with the sharp scent of overheated electronics and sweat. Somewhere in the audience, fans were calling Hyunjin's name through tears, their voices trembling beneath the low hum of malfunctioning speakers. But Hyunjin heard only Felix's heartbeat, fast, terrified, human. For a few fragile seconds he stayed hidden against Felix's shoulder, eyes shut tightly as if the world outside no longer existed. Cameras, headlines, expectations, everything faded beneath the warmth of Felix's arms around him. And that terrified him more than the collapse itself, because Hyunjin had spent years learning how to endure pain alone. Letting someone hold it with him felt dangerous. The stage floor vibrated suddenly as staff rolled medical equipment closer. Voices overlapped everywhere now. "We need the exit cleared. Where's the transport?" The live stream off completely. Too late, everyone knew. Felix slowly pulled back just enough to look at Hyunjin's face again. Strands of blonde hair clung to damp skin while tears remained trapped along his lashes despite how hard he tried hiding them. "You scared me," Felix whispered. Hyunjin forced a weak smile automatically. "I'm still here." Felix didn't smile back because that sentence sounded frighteningly uncertain. The members finally approached carefully through the chaos surrounding them. Concern was written across every face now, stripped completely of idle composure. Bang Chan crouched beside them first. "What's happening?" he asked quietly. Hyunjin immediately looked away. That reaction alone answered everything. Chan's expression shifted instantly, from confusion to realization to heartbreak so quickly it hurt to witness. He glanced toward Felix, whose exhausted silence confirmed the truth neither of them wanted to say aloud. "You knew," Chan whispered. Felix couldn't answer, not because he didn't want to, because guilt had lodged itself too deeply in his throat. Chan exhaled shakily and ran a hand through his hair. "How long?" "Months." The word barely escaped Felix's mouth. Silence crashed down around them. Even the distant audience noise seemed smaller now. Chan looked devastated, not angry. "That somehow made it worse. You should have told us." Hyunjin closed his eyes immediately after hearing that. Felix saw the exact second shame hit him again like a blade to the chest. "I didn't want everyone worrying," Hyunjin said softly. "You collapsed. I could still perform." Chan stared at him in disbelief, and Felix suddenly realized something horrifying. Hyunjin genuinely believed his value existed only in what he could continue giving people, even now, even barely conscious. The medic interrupted urgently. "We really need to move him." This time Hyunjin didn't argue. He looked too exhausted to fight anymore. Felix carefully helped him stand, keeping one arm securely around his waist. The second Hyunjin's weight shifted fully onto his feet. Pain flashed openly across his face before he masked it again. Felix noticed, always, their eyes met briefly, and Hyunjin looked away first. The walk toward backstage felt endless. Fans near the barricades cried openly as security cleared a path. Some shouted messages of support. Others simply stared in stunned silence while recording with trembling hands. One voice cut clearly through the noise. "Please don't disappear." Hyunjin's steps faltered slightly. Felix tightened his hold instinctively. Backstage was somehow worse. Managers rushed between corridors with pale faces while phones rang non-stop from every direction. Giant monitors displayed social media feeds updating faster than anyone could control. #Hyunjin trended worldwide, so did Felix, and beneath those tags, millions of people were analyzing every glance, every touch, every leaked photograph. The atmosphere felt suffocating. Hyunjin stopped walking suddenly. Felix looked down immediately. "What's wrong?" But Hyunjin wasn't looking at him. He was staring at a monitor mounted near the hallway ceiling. A video clip was replaying silently on the screen. Felix screaming his name on stage, catching him before he fell, holding him while crying. The internet had already edited cinematic music beneath it. Comments flooded endlessly below. They're definitely hiding something. Looks genuinely in love with him. This hurts to watch. Hyunjin's face lost what little color remained. Felix moved instantly, stepping in front of the screen to block it from view. Read it. Hyunjin laughed softly. It was one of the saddest sounds Felix had ever heard. You can't protect me from the entire world. Watch me. Answer came without hesitation. And for the first time that night, Hyunjin looked genuinely shaken, not by fear, not by pain, but by Felix himself, because Felix meant it, every word. A manager hurried toward them moments later, breathing heavily. We need a statement immediately, he said. The company's already getting pressured by reporters. Hyunjin straightened instinctively despite barely being able to stand. I'll do it. No, Felix said instantly. Everyone looked at him. Felix rarely interrupted management discussions, rarely challenged decisions publicly. Tonight he looked ready to fight anyone who pushed further. He needs rest. Manager hesitated carefully. Felix, the situation is becoming bigger every minute if we do address. I said no. The hallway fell silent. Hyunjin touched Felix's sleeve gently. It's okay. Turned toward him sharply. No, it's not. Something cracked inside Hyunjin's expression then, tiny, almost invisible, but Felix saw it, saw the exhaustion of someone who had spent too long apologizing for existing imperfectly. I'm tired of disappointing people, Hyunjin admitted quietly. The confession hit harder than any scream. Felix stepped closer immediately. You never disappointed me. Hyunjin's eyes flickered slightly at that, and suddenly Felix remembered another night months earlier. A hotel rooftop in Tokyo, cold wind, city lights glowing endlessly below them, Hyunjin sitting dangerously close to the edge while staring at the sky in silence. Felix had found him there after midnight. You should sleep, Felix said back then. Hyunjin smiled faintly without looking away from the city. Do you ever wonder what happens if people stop loving us? Felix frowned. Where is this coming from? No matter how hard we work, eventually people get bored. Sat beside him carefully. That won't happen. You don't know that. Hyunjin's voice sounded frighteningly calm that night. I think I forgot who I am without everyone watching. The memory stabbed through Felix now with terrifying clarity, because maybe this collapse hadn't started tonight. Maybe Hyunjin had been falling apart for a very long time. And nobody noticed until his body finally forced the truth into the light. The medic approached again carefully with a wheelchair this time. Hyunjin immediately shook his head. I can walk. You almost lost consciousness twice, the medic argued. Fine. Not fine, Felix snapped. Hyunjin flinched slightly. Regret hit Felix instantly. But before he could apologize, Hyunjin whispered something so quietly it nearly disappeared beneath the backstage noise. You looked scared when I stopped breathing. Froze completely, because Hyunjin said it like an apology, like he regretted frightening him more than the pain itself. Felix swallowed hard. I thought I lost you. The raw honesty between them silenced the hallway again. Managers looked away. Staff pretended not to hear. And Hyunjin stared at Felix with an expression so vulnerable it almost didn't look like him anymore. Then, before anyone could speak again, a loud crash echoed from the far end of the corridor. Someone had forced their way backstage.
Sound of running footsteps tore through the hallway. Security guards shouted instantly as cameras flashed violently from the far entrance. Reporters had broken through the restricted area, their voices overlapping in chaos while staff rushed to block them. Hyunjin, is the hospital photo real? Felix, are you two hiding something? Was tonight staged? The questions slammed into the corridor like bullets. Hyunjin visibly froze. Felix stepped in front of him immediately. The movement was instinctive, protective, and heartbreakingly obvious. Camera flashes exploded brighter the second reporters noticed it. Get that? Felix's jaw tightened hard enough to ache. His arm remained firmly around Hyunjin while security struggled to push reporters backward through the narrow hall. But the damage was already done. Every camera captured the same thing. Felix shielding Hyunjin like the entire world had suddenly become a threat. Hyunjin lowered his head slightly, breathing unevenly again. Felix could feel the tremor running through his body beneath the thin stage jacket. Too much, everything was becoming too much. Then one reporter shouted the question that finally shattered the last fragile thread holding the night together. Hyunjin collapsed because of the hate comments. Silence, absolute silence. Even security stopped moving for half a second. Hyunjin's expression changed instantly. Not dramatic, not angry, just tired. So impossibly tired. Felix felt it the moment Hyunjin's fingers tightened weakly against his sleeve. And suddenly, Felix understood something terrifying. The physical pain was never the worst part. It was loneliness, the pressure, the fear of never being enough no matter how hard he tried. Felix slowly turned toward the cameras. Everyone in the hallway froze, because something inside Felix had changed tonight. The careful, idle mask was gone. No playful smiles, no polished answers, only exhaustion and truth, Felix said quietly. The corridor erupted immediately. Managers cursed. Reporters surged forward again. But Felix didn't stop. Kept pretending he was okay because he was scared people would think he became weak. His voice trembled slightly now. He kept smiling even when he couldn't breathe properly anymore. Hyunjin looked up sharply, panic flickering across his face. Felix, no, finally looked at him directly. And for the first time all night, tears openly fell down Felix's face without him hiding them. You don't get to protect everyone by destroying yourself. The hallway fell completely silent again. Hyunjin stared at him speechlessly, because nobody had ever said that to him before, not honestly, not without expectations attached. Felix stepped closer despite the cameras recording every second. You spent so long trying to survive alone that you forgot people love you even when you're hurting. Hyunjin's breathing broke unevenly. Felix continued anyway. I don't care what articles say tomorrow. I don't care what rumors spread. His voice cracked harder now. I just need you alive. The final sentence destroyed whatever emotional walls remained inside the hallway. Several staff members quietly wiped tears away. Even security guards looked shaken. And Hyunjin finally broke, not loudly, not dramatically. His shoulders simply collapsed inward as tears spilled silently down his face while years of pressure, fear, exhaustion, and loneliness finally surfaced all at once. Felix caught him instantly before he could fall again. This time Hyunjin didn't resist, didn't apologize. He just held onto Felix tightly like someone exhausted from drowning. And somewhere in the middle of flashing cameras and chaos, the truth became painfully simple. Fans had spent years believing Felix and Hyunjin were acting affectionate, acting emotional, acting close for attention. But reality was far messier than performance. Because what existed between them was not scripted enough to look perfect. It was frightened hands grabbing each other in hospital rooms at 4 a.m. silent panic attacks, hidden behind makeup and stage lights. Late-night conversations about fear and failure while the rest of the world slept. It was Felix memorizing the sound of Hyunjin's breathing, because he became terrified of nights when it weakened. It was Hyunjin pretending he was okay, because he thought collapsing would disappoint people he loved. And maybe that was why it looked so real on stage, because it was. The reporters slowly lowered their cameras one by one, not out of orders, out of understanding. The hallway no longer felt like celebrity drama, it felt human. A manager finally approached carefully after several long moments. The car is ready, nodded slightly. Together they began walking again toward the private exit, slower this time, quieter. Hyunjin still leaned weakly against Felix, but something about him had changed. The mask was gone. For the first time in a very long while he looked honest. Outside, rain poured heavily across the city streets. Fans remained gathered near barricades despite the storm, worried faces glowing beneath umbrellas and phone screens. As security escorted them toward the waiting vehicle, the crowd unexpectedly grew quiet. No screaming, no chaos, just silence filled with concern. Then one fan shouted softly through the rain, "Take care of each other." Another voice followed. "We'll wait for you." More voices joined after that until the street filled with gentle support instead of panic. Hyunjin stopped walking briefly. Rain dripped from his hair while he stared at the crowd in disbelief. Not disappointment, not anger, just people waiting, people caring. Felix looked at him carefully. "You hear that?" Hyunjin's eyes shimmered faintly beneath the city lights. And for the first time that night his smile became real, small, fragile, but real. Months later, when the concert footage finally stopped trending and headlines moved on to newer scandals, one clip still remained unforgettable to fans around the world. Not the collapse, not the leaked hospital photo, not even the chaos backstage. It was a blurry moment recorded by someone near the front row just seconds before the stage lights went dark. Felix holding Hyunjin's trembling face gently, looking at him with absolute terror and care. and whispering 3 words no microphone was ever supposed to catch. "I'm here, Hyunjin."